Well, I want to start off with a question. I know I already asked the question and Paul asked the question. Seems like we're a church of questions, as we were saying before the service. Now we're going to give you answers. But before I give you answers, I want to start with a question. And I need you to be as honest as you can be. You don't lie in the church. As my wife says, you shouldn't lie anywhere else either. But right now, you don't lie in the church. Okay, we are family, so we're going to be open, transparent. We're going to just say that as it is, all right? So I'm going to ask you the question. Are you ready for the question? Are you selfish? By a show of hands, let us see. Are you selfish? Some of you are like, I don't think I am. Are you selfish? Come on, we got to have less liars in the church today. Are you selfish? I mean, I can be. Before I got married, I thought I was the most selfless person in the world. I was like, dude, you're not even selfish at all. Anyone would want to marry you. So I got married to my wife, and then I still thought, as I got married, oh, I'm not selfish. Still not, she's selfish. I'm not selfish. We're both selfish, but I'm not selfish. And then we got to this point where somehow my wife fell pregnant. I don't know how that happened. Fell pregnant. Boom, there's a tummy all of a sudden. And we're expecting our first child. And at that moment, I realized how selfish I was. Because a baby brings a whole nother perspective on how selfish humanity is. It's not about you anymore. It's about this little crying thing that you want to... That's why my wife handled that. Then we had our second child and I realized, I thought I got less selfish. And then by the second child, I realized, no, dude, you're way more selfish than you thought you were. So there was a lot of progress and work to do. And today I still realize that I'm selfish. I do things and I realized, man, dude, that was a little bit selfish. Now, don't look at me with those judging eyes. I am a work in progress, and you are a work in progress. We are all selfish people, even if we don't admit it, if we don't look like it directly, we might not be selfish, but somewhere deep down inside, there's parts of us that are selfish. Let's just go to this point. We all want to be significant, and sometimes we have to be selfish to get significance, right? We all want to be a little bit happy, and sometimes we have to be selfish to get happiness. So we all have a level of selfishness. Then to put it on top of that, there's people everywhere in the world that you encounter, and guess what? They are selfish too. So there's a world full of selfish people. Now, why am I building this idea of selfishness? Because this month, and in this specific message today, our series will be looking at, hey, humanity, you are selfish. Church, this is the first recognition that you need to do today. It's the first step to overcoming anything is recognize. Hey, I'm recognizing that I am selfish. Step number 2, the church is not just for you. Our series is BTW. If you don't know what that means, it means by the way, but we're also calling it Beyond These Walls. Beyond These Walls. Church is not just for us, and it's a reminder. This whole series, this message today is a reminder for us that church is not just for us. Salvation is not just for us. If you're sitting here and you've given your heart and life to Jesus, it's not just for you. A life of peace and freedom is not just for us. There are people beyond these walls who need to be loved and who need to be led. There are people beyond these walls that need to encounter Jesus. There are people beyond these walls that need the same love experience of Jesus that you have had before, that you had this morning. There are people outside of this building that need to encounter an alternative path than what they're on. Many of us had this path where we thought, oh my goodness, life is hectic and it's full of sin. But guess what? There's an alternative message for people out there, and in here there's a message of hope. There's a message of peace, and we need to actually say, come on, beyond these walls, it's not about me alone, but it's about a world out there who is lost, hurting, broken, desperately need Jesus. So by the way, there are people who need your love and your leading. Just one more, our phrase, just one more. We need one more person in church, one more life impacted. Cannot be possible if we're not willing to go beyond these walls. If we just stay within us four, no more, us just here, well, a lot more than 4 today. Should have seen winter. But because Christians only come to church in summer. Okay, don't be naughty, John. So how can we love and lead people? How can we love and lead other people when we are selfish? When we're consumed by self? Well, I'm so glad you asked the question. Today, I want to answer it for you. The whole idea of today's message comes from Matthew 22, and the title is The Great Commandment. The Great Commandment. Let's read it together. Verse 34 to 40. Now when the Pharisees heard that he had muzzled the Sadducees, they gathered together. One of them, a lawyer, an expert in Mosaic law, asked Jesus a question. You see, even other people ask people questions to test him, and we're doing that to test you. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? For a moment, I just want to pause and tell you who the lawyer was. He was an expert in Mosaic law. In other words, he was a lawyer, but he also had theology. He was an expert in theology. It's all he lived, breathed. It's everything he did. He was consumed by theology and knowing the law. That is who he was. Then I can just picture this guy standing with his friends around Monopoly, going like, "Oh, you don't steal from the bank. No, it's my turn." And having a debate on what is the greatest law of all. They could, and 613 laws, how do you choose which one's the greatest law? In the Old Testament, they were carrying 613 laws. 613. Count it for a second. That's a lot of laws. That's a lot of things to live by. That's a lot of things to remember. And their big question was, what is the greatest of all of them? And I would have been like, are you guys serious right now? If I was Jesus, I would have been like, dudes, let me just go through the list. Okay, highlight that one. That could be potential possibility. Jesus had an instant response. And you know what's beautiful about his response? He's actually responding. He knew who his crowd was. He's speaking to Jewish people, Pharisees and Sadducees. He's speaking to them. And this is what the greatest part of his response is. He actually quotes something that they, as Jewish people, would have recited every single morning and every single night. It would have been part from a little child. They would have said this daily, or something we could apply once you get what it is. Every day they would say this. And this is Jesus' response as it continues. He's actually quoting Deuteronomy 6 verse 5 in Matthew, and this is what it says. Jesus replied to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind." Imagine these Jewish little children every morning. You love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And yet Jesus knows who he's speaking to, and he's actually, guys, you want to know the greatest command? Let me tell you what it is. It's something you already know. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind. And then he continues and he takes another passage out of Leviticus in the Old Testament and continues. The second is like it. That was the greatest. The second is just like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. That is, in the Amplified Version, unselfishly seek the best or higher good for others. The whole law and the writings of the prophet depend on these two commandments. All 613 wrapped up in two. Love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. See, if we're going to reach people, lead people, love people, influence people, impact people, reflect Jesus to people beyond these walls, it's going to take us not just knowing the great command, but actually living the great command. And the first step to that is loving God. BTW, by the way, we love and lead people beyond these walls by loving God. Loving God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. It starts with a heart issue that God takes priority in your life, in your heart. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. God is to have the exclusive first place in our affections. I was bragging to the first service that I've been to a few VIP events, you know. It feels really cool when you go to an exclusive event. So a few months ago, or August it was, I went to the Festival of Motoring. And we got VIP tickets to the yellow zone because we have kids and they can be an issue at a motoring event. So we needed a VIP zone. So I took my kids to this VIP zone exclusive. So now, highlight that. Free pizza all day. You think it's free. You paid for the ticket, but we had free pizza all day. Like, you could see it the next week Sunday. I had a lot of pizza. We had free cool drinks all day. My kids could have as many slush puppies as they wanted. Every time we walked out and came back in, it didn't matter. We had exclusive treatment. Same needs to be true of our hearts with Jesus. That he has an exclusive place in our heart. Full access to every part of our lives. That we give our hearts to him. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Now, of course, you can love other things too. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love pizza, as you heard. I love eating, I love food, I love Simba chips and Lay's, which since the 1st of October, I've been like, no thanks, I'm not going to have you. It's been really hard. Pray for me. It's my hardest issue in my life right now. But we've got to love the Lord our God with all our heart, above everything else, above anything else. Then it continues saying, love him with all your soul. Now, our soul is the seat of our inner life. The soul is the seat of your inner life. It's your very self. We all love ourselves. We all love our own lives. We all seek to protect and nourish our own lives and nurture the life that God has given us. It's hard to think of anything more yours than your soul. And here they're saying, love the Lord your God with all your soul, with who you are. There's nothing more yours than that. And they're saying, love God with this. Love Him with all your soul. That the individual that you are actually loves God deeply. Loves God deeply. And finally, it says, love the Lord with all your mind. Now, I believe, as I was preparing this message, that this is probably the hardest part to love God with. I love Him with my heart. I love Him with my soul. Oh, the mind in this generation. The mind is out of control. The mind plays games on us. The mind predicts the future and makes it as if it's reality, and then we stress and worry. Now we've got to love the Lord our God with all our mind. The mind is something that's personal to you. It's actually more, it's so deep you. In fact, the mind is yours. No one else knows what's going on in there. It's only accessible to you unless you choose to share what's up there. And it's saying now with that, your mind, which is your deepest conviction, your beliefs, your intellect, everything comes from your mind. Love the Lord your God with that. With all your mind. That's something that is so personal to you. Love Him with all your intellect. With all your reasoning. Love Him. See, if we are to love and lead others beyond these walls, it's going to start with a deep love for God. In fact, loving others, reaching our world, will be a byproduct of our love for God. If you love God, the byproduct is you will love people. You'll lead people. So if you're struggling to love people and lead people, perhaps you got to check your love meter when it comes to God. How much do I truly love God? Do I love Him with all of my heart, soul, and mind? Do I love Him with all of who I am? Loving God has a byproduct, and that is loving other people. That's the very reason Christ came to this earth. It says in Luke 19 verse 10, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. That is why Jesus came, to seek and to save the lost. This is a fruit of loving God. It's the byproduct of loving God is the fact that we're going, hey, I want to seek and save the lost. It's sad when a church gets so inward that they forget that there's a world out there. The whole purpose of Jesus was to seek and save the lost. And we're complaining about our lives and we're struggling in life, but we're forgetting that there's people who need Jesus as well. Beyond these walls, there's a people, if we love God enough, there will be a deep desire within us to say, you know what, my life needs to help seek and save the lost. As a church, we need to seek and save the lost. We cannot be satisfied with this. We cannot be satisfied with where we are. We need more of you, God, so that we can show more of you to the world around us. There's people who are desperately in need of a Savior. And guess what? I've got the good news in my heart. I've just got to share it to somebody. This will reflect the command of loving God. Loving God with all of our heart, soul, mind. It doesn't just represent rigid components in our lives. It represents the whole of our being. That we love God so deeply. Our entire being, meaning that He takes precedence in all of our lives. As you plan your life, as you plan your career, as you plan your marriage, as you plan your family, which some of you need to start popping children, as you plan your finances, as you plan your decisions, love God. As you do all of this to love and lead others beyond these walls, we have to get this foundational truth right. I need to love God. In everything I do, in everything I plan, I need to love God. So I've got 2 questions that will help you in this. I hope it will help you in this. Number 1, does this particular decision, plan, ambition, desire, or relationship give evidence in some way that I love the Lord as my God supremely? So what I'm about to say yes to, what I'm about to agree to, what journey I'm about to embark on, the person I'm about to ask out to date me, the person I'm about to marry, can I say that this decision is going to show that I love God supremely? Second question is, does this particular decision, plan, ambition, desire, relationship give me more opportunity to love God and declare His love to others? So the same thing applies. If I go into this career, will it give me more opportunity to love God, not steal from my relationship with God? But it will also, will it give me opportunity to express this love to others? Love God. Love God. For those of you who like facts and information, I've put this in my message just for you. Here it comes. Are you ready? Love God. The first great commandment covers the first 4 of the 10 commandments. Love God. The first great commandment covers the first 4 of the 10 commandments, which regulate our relationship with God. So let me put it practically for you. If you truly love Him with all your being, you will never allow any other God to occupy a place in your heart. If you love him with all your being, you will never seek to create an image of him that is lesser than what he is. In other words, an idol. You will not bow to things that you shouldn't be bowing to. If you truly love him with all your being, you will honor and reverence him and never use his name in vain, in a blasphemous way. If you truly love him with all your being, you will faithfully set aside all the lesser things of this world so that you can follow the example he set out for you and give him the due attention that he deserves, a day of rest. We call it Sabbath. See, if we're going to reach people, lead people, love people, influence people, reflect Jesus to people beyond these walls, it's going to take us going, you know what, I need to work on my relationship with God. I need to love God deeply. But then it's also going to take loving self. Now, this is really for you. Loving self. And the difference here is it's not a selfishness, it's a self-care. We're not just doing things so we can, we need to look after ourselves. So why don't you give yourself a hug, Shame? Some of you really need to love yourselves better. BTW, we love and lead people beyond these walls by loving ourselves. This type of love goes hand in hand with loving God because we know that he created us. That he loves us and therefore we need to love ourselves. That when he looks at us, he doesn't see failure, he sees purpose. When he looks at us, he doesn't see ugly, he sees beauty. When he looks at us, he doesn't see, oh, your life's falling apart, he sees potential and growth. So we need to love ourselves because he loves us. The reality is, a broken pot cannot hold water and then quench other people. I'm going to say it again for the slow people. A broken pot cannot carry water and quench others at the same time. So if your life is broken, you're not going to be able to hold what you need to overflow. You're not going to be able to quench other people. So it starts with loving yourself. If you want to lead your world, it starts with loving yourself and saying, God, heal me, restore me, fix my heart so that I can be filled with you and overflow to the world around me. Let me put it in another way. An empty well cannot produce water. It has to be filled. Where are you getting filled? Where are you positioning yourself to say, God, fill me? The world's filling you right now, and what's coming out of you? Do you really want that to impact the world, or do you want to impact the world with his love, his power, his spirit? For those of you who are excited about the petrol price coming down, I'll put this in for you. An empty petrol tank cannot fuel a car. You drove here with a little yellow light flashing at you. An empty petrol, I'm sorry, I just added stress to your life there. I'm going to go like, it's 1K down to Sassel. Can I make it? Can I make it? Can I make it? An empty petrol tank cannot fuel a car. If you're living on empty, you can't lead and love other people. That's why loving yourself is mentioned here, because loving yourself is important, not in a selfish way, but in a way of submission under God. God, fill me. I need more of you. God, I'm not okay. I am broken. I am struggling. Fill me, restore me, heal me so that I can lead and love the world around me. It follows to say that our empty selves cannot love others well. Think of it like this, and I'll put it in a very practical example of my own life. When I'm not well rested, when I'm stressed about my next assignment, which is tomorrow, when I'm worried, I can't love my family well. I can't lead my children well. Because they'll be like, Daddy, play me. And I'm just thinking what I have to do, and I'm stressed out. And can you just leave me alone for a moment? You cannot love well when you aren't well. When you don't love yourself well, when you're not in a good space. So here's the question for you, seeing that we're a church of questions this morning. Oh, before I go there, if you're hard on yourself, maybe you need to be less hard on yourself. I'm not talking to the lazy people. I'm talking to those who are genuinely hard on themselves. Because if you're hard on yourself, you'll be hard on others. Again, I've seen it in my life. I am very hard on myself because I believe I need to be the best me that I can be to glorify God, and that means being hard on myself. Then I see my son be hard on himself, and I'm like, where did that come from? Your mother. You got to watch how hard you are on yourself. You see, how you love yourself affects how you love others. How you treat yourself affects how you treat others. Don't be blinded by this false pride thing. Love yourself well. So here's the question. Do you need to invest in yourself so that you can love others better? Do you need to invest in yourself? Oh, someone is like, yes, I take that right now. Do you need to invest in yourself so that you can love others better? I'm speaking maybe more to the moms in the house this morning. I was having a conversation with a mom at cricket yesterday. We're just sitting there watching our sons. So I'm like, okay, I'll just talk the whole time. And I was talking to this mom, and she said, mom guilt is a real thing. I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. So I'm not a mother. Mom guilt is a real thing. And some of you think, I cannot take a break. I cannot rest. I cannot just say, husband, sort this out. And you forget to invest in yourself. And you're not going to be a very good mom if you're not investing in yourself, giving yourself off time. I've had to learn this. Like, babes, you need to go out. Please, go out, please. So you can love us better. See, when we get on an airplane, my wife and I love it when the AOG conferences are in Cape Town, because we get to go to the beautiful Cape Town, see the beautiful Table Mountain and Lion's Head and other heads, and it's just beautiful, and the beach, and it's just nice, all the nice places, because none of you go there as tourists to see the bad places, so you only go to the nice places, all the wine farms. It's just beautiful. The whole place is stunning. Those trams are amazing. The colors, it's just great. Cape Town's amazing. But when you get on an airplane in the morning or in the afternoon, depends where you fly, we get on to FlySafair, and you're like sitting there waiting for your flight to take off. And if you've flown more than like 3 times, you actually don't want to listen to safety instructions. The pamphlets in front of me, I've heard, I know what needs to happen. And if it happens, I'm probably going to panic and stress out and not do what you're telling me to do anyway. But there you are in the airplane, and it's like, ping, pong. Please remember that when we are in an airplane accident, that when the mask falls down, put it on your face first, so that you can then be of assistance to those around you, especially little children. We ignore these things. But there's truth in this. The fact that I'm alive and breathing because I put a mask on first means that I can help someone else. And now when we bring this to the spiritual life we're in, we think we can do everything we want and then almost be dead the way we're living our lives and try and love other people. No, put on your mask first so that you can assist other people. Put on your lifeline first so you can assist other people. Get in His presence more so that you can overflow and help other people. Come on, can we just get to a place where we're going, church, if we're going to be a church that goes beyond these walls, not us four no more, but a church that impacts Krugersdorp and South Africa, that we need to start with loving God, but surely we can love ourselves a little bit better too. Because there's a principle here, and the principle is overflow. Whatever's inside of me will come out of me. Some of the things coming out of us is not building anything. Some of the things coming out of us is not building this church. Some of the things coming out of us is not building your family. Some of the things coming out of you is not building your marriage. Work on loving yourself. Get it right in your heart. Selfishness is very different to self-care. And I truly believe that God wants us to be the healthiest, strongest, best versions of ourselves possible. It's His desire for us. So I've put down some things for you who are struggling to love yourself, which is like 99% of the room. I've got this from a Christian article speaking on how to love yourself so you can love others well. The first thing is prioritize time for self-evaluation. We heard that on week 1 of our September series. Examine what's happening inside. Secondly, give yourself grace to fail. Because you're going to fail. You might not fail today, but you will fail at some point. And when you do, you need to learn to fail forward. Give yourself some grace to fail forward. That you don't just freeze when you fail, but you go, okay, cool, I'm getting back up, I'm going to fail forward. Give yourself grace to fail. Don't overthink your life. My goodness. Be patient and kind with yourself. Prioritize relaxation. So go on holiday. Not every week, please. We want you in church. But go on holiday every now and then. Identify your strengths and giftings and walk in them. Identify fears and seek resolutions. Identify lies that you believe to be true and replace them with the identity in Christ. Forgive yourself and accept that you are perfectly imperfect. Put that on your mirror. Don't waste energy on worrying about things that you cannot control. I'm going to say that again for those who are struggling with that. Don't waste energy on worrying about things that you cannot control. Have hope in yourself through hope in Christ. Let go of bitterness and unforgiveness. Forgive yourself so that you can forgive others. Do not live with an offendable heart. For me, this is the big breakdown in most churches across the world. In most relationships across the world. Most friendships across the world. Living with an offendable heart. That we are not quick for conversation, we're quick to offense. That we just take offense and that becomes something that births in our heart, and man, it gets ugly. Do your best not to live with an offendable heart. Lead yourself by speaking life over yourself. Listen, South African. Now you listen, eh? This isn't going to be lacquered for you. I'm just trying to make it really South African. Listen, just for a second. Make sure you take this part in. Speak life over your life. We have enough complaining Joes out there. Meant to Karen's, actually. And the boy version I heard is Norman. Yeah. So if you're Norman, yeah, sorry. Speak life. Speak life. Speak life. I was watching Inside Out #2 for the millionth time last night with my kids. And Joy in the movie, she's supposed to project joy, right? It's like your whole character is joy. But there came a point in the movie where all the emotions, anger, disgust, and all the other emotions in this movie were just complaining and moaning and worrying. Eventually, Joy just had a little breakdown moment where she just burst out and said, just complain, complain, complain. All you guys do is complain, complain, complain. I wonder how many of our joy has been broken down because we just complain, 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 complain. Speak life over your life, for goodness sake. Find rest for your soul. Let go of your control freak. Develop the habit of a grateful heart. Set wise boundaries. If you ever come to a meeting with myself or Pastor Stella, the first thing we will tell you is learn to set boundaries. Learn to set boundaries. We won't come and speak to you a fourth time if you're not going to listen to that one thing. Learn to set boundaries in your life. Say no to certain things. Say no to certain people. Bring some boundaries in your life because you know what? You're in control of your life, not other people. Set boundaries. If you truly want to live a life of loving yourself so you can love others and lead others well, you got to set some boundaries. Don't be quick to anger. You deserve more peace. Move your body. I like that one. Ride a bike, go on a hike, watch the sunset, lekker. Live an honorable life. Do not dishonor yourself. Spend quality time investing in your relationship with Jesus. This is probably the most important thing. We underestimate the power of actually spending time with Jesus. It changes everything. Release emotions that weigh you down and receive biblical truth, life-giving biblical truth. Healthy people know about healthy rest. So here's the bottom line, church. When we love ourselves well and we invest in our hearts, then our family, our marriages, our neighbors will benefit from it. So if we're going to reach people, lead people, love people, influence people, impact people, reflect Jesus to people, it's going to take loving God, loving ourselves, and then lastly, loving people, which we've been purposed and called to do. BTW, we love and lead people beyond these walls by the way that we unselfishly seek the best for others. Just by the way, loving your neighbor does not just mean the person next door. The literal meaning of this loving your neighbor means someone who's near. So it's loving anyone who's near that God has brought near to you. Look at the people who are nearest to you. Those are the people you need to love and lead. Oh, but my colleague is very near. Yes, love and lead. My boss is near. Love and lead. My wife is near. Love and lead. Your children are near. Love and lead. You've got to love and lead those who are near to you. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love and lead those who are close to you. So what Jesus is saying, hey, I know that naturally you love yourselves. It's a human trait to love yourselves. He's not thinking that anything else. He knows. Jesus knows that our human trait when we are born is to love ourselves. And by birth, it's not a natural evil thing. It's not a bad thing. You don't have to learn it. It comes with humanity. But God created it. He created you to love yourself. And in itself, it is good. It's to hunger for food is not evil. Right? To want to be warm in winter is not evil. To want to be safe in crisis, not evil. To want to be liked by others, not evil. To want your life to count and be significant in some sort of way, it's not evil. But this is a human-defying trait. Things change when we learn to sin. But the reality of this, it's not evil. So in other words, make your self-seeking the measure of your self-giving. Make your self-seeking the measure of your self-giving. What you seek for yourself, why don't you make that the measure to give to others? Make your self-seeking your self-giving. I mean, when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, that word as is very big. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So it's not saying, hey, love your neighbor in the same way, on the same things that you want, but also in the same way that you love yourself. Not just what you want, but the same way you love yourself. Again, loving God is never in isolation from loving other people. Loving God results in loving self and loving others. It's the first commandment, loving God, that actually makes the second commandment doable. Because I love God, I'm able to love myself and others. It's the first commandment that makes the second commandment doable. It's the first commandment that takes away the threat of the second commandment in our lives. Because the second commandment is a threat. What? I need to love other people? Oh my goodness. I need to let go of my happiness to love other people. This is such a threat to my life. I have to give up my finances to help somebody else's life. Are you crazy? It threatens us, but because we love God, it flows naturally. Second commandment is possible and doable because of the first commandment, self-seeking. God is calling us to invest into our neighbors. He's calling us to sacrifice when necessary for our neighbors. He's ultimately calling us to show kindness to our neighbors. I love what this commentary says, and I really want to highlight the end of it, but I'm going to read the whole thing just to get to the end. This is what it says. In the first commandment, Jesus focuses the passion to be happy firmly on God and God alone. In the second commandment, he opens a whole world of expanding joy in God and says people, human beings everywhere you find them, are designed to receive and enlarge your joy in God. Love them the way you love yourself. Show them, give them, through every practical means available, what you have found for yourself in God. I love that part. Let me read again. Show them, give them, through every practical means available, what you have found for yourself in God. In other words, show others what you have found in God. Show others that you have hope because you have God. Show others that you have restoration because you have God. Show others that you have healing because you have God. Show others that you live with breakthrough because you have God. That you have victory because you have God. That you have a new life because you have God. You have joy because you have God. You have unity because you have God. You have wholeness because you have God. Show the world what God has done for you. That's what happens beyond these walls. I don't want to be a Christian. Have you met Christians? Have you seen how they live? Have you seen how they complain? Have you seen their lives? That's because we're not showing what God has done for us. We're not showing the world, hey, look at what a Christian looks like. My life is in chaos, but I'm at peace. I was telling the first service that we're praying for Kitchener because his brother was in a head-on collision. But one thing I can tell you about Kitchener, one thing I love about Kitchener is the fact that he shows what he has found in God. That even in the hardest moments of his life, you can hear faith come through that phone. Even in the hardest moment of his life, he's got some peace in his heart. Can we show the world what's inside of us? Can we show the world that God actually did change us, that we're not just bums on a seat, but we're here to go and be the church? Show others what God has done for you. You know, a love for Him urges a love for others. If we're not loving others, we don't love Him well enough. Our relationship with God definitely represents or is shown in our relationship with others. For those of you who like facts, I want to tell you your second fact. Just as the first great commandment, which is love God, speaks about the first 10 commandments governing our relationship with God, the second great commandment speaks of the last of the 10 commandments. Loving yourself, your neighbor as yourself, covers the last 6 of the 10 commandments, the ones that govern our relationship with people. If, in other words, this is how it says it. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you'll honor your mother and your father. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you will not murder your neighbor, I hope. But the reality is we read the 10 commandments as 10 commandments. That is the title of the 10 commandments. It actually goes into all different areas as subcategories within that. So if we're saying do not murder, it actually can go further by saying, hey, if you love your neighbor, don't diminish them. Don't break them apart. Don't gossip about them. Don't tear them apart. Love your neighbor. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you will not commit adultery. You will live morally pure. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you will not steal from your neighbor or take from them what God has given them to enjoy. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you will not bear false witness against them. You will not gossip about them. You will not spread lies about them. If you love your neighbor, you won't lie just for your advantage. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you will be content with what God has entrusted to them to enjoy in their lives. You won't be envious. It all sums up. Love God, love people, just covers our commandments. So I want to tell you this. Rather than worrying about what we should not do, the 10 commandments, why don't we just worry about what we should do? Love God, love yourself as you love others. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Let's not be a church that, what shouldn't I do? What shouldn't I do? What shouldn't I do? Here's 2 things you can do, should be doing beyond these walls. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. So here's the question as we finish. Do you truly love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind? And do we really love our neighbors as ourselves? Because if we're going to be a church that reaches people, leads people, loves people, influences people, impacts people, reflects Jesus to people beyond these walls, It's going to take us not just knowing the Great Commandment, but actually living it. Loving God, loving yourself, and loving your neighbor in the same way. Let us pray.